Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. Just waiting a few more minutes for a few more people to join and then we'll get going.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, in a minute or two, yeah. I'm just... Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us again. I hope you can all hear me. If not, then you've got it wrong and you haven't been doing your Zooms correctly. Just to say, we will be recording this and putting it up. So if you don't consent to your voice being on, don't speak, simply. Just in terms of rules of engagement, I'm happy that people unmute and just pitch in as and when. I'll try to manage the discussion as best we can, but we want it to be quite an open discussion, so fairly fluid. If you have got children running around or dogs or whatever, please keep them under control, and obviously stay on mute if you have that noise in the background. But we want it to be a debate rather than just a lecture. Last week we had some real good input from people, and the two key issues coming out that we've had emerge. One is around supporting clubs, and that's obviously changed rapidly this week with Sport England's funding, etc. Helping them mothball, close down, keep going, all that sort of thing. And then issue around coaches, and supporting their employment or non-employment, etc. through their period of time. So this is not about what I know or what Natalie knows or what Nino. We are picking up a lot of information across the sector, but it is really much around what you're picking up as well, and actually trying to collectively solve the challenges that we're facing at the moment. So really kicking off the supporting clubs and organisations. What issues are people finding in terms of what clubs are saying to them? What support are they needing? Last week we had ranging from how to stop the beer flowing to closing down a summer season of a sport. So would anybody like to kick us off with any particular issues that they want to raise around supporting clubs and organisations in this early period? Please fire away.
I think it's Paul Lorenzato from Rowing here. I think what we found with our clubs is at the moment, they've just got over the bit of shutting up clubs, locking them up, making them secure. They don't know what support they want yet. They're getting to the point of, okay, we now need to look at a financial plan. What are we doing with our members? Are we giving them membership holidays? Are members leaving? They really don't know what their immediate future is. It'll take a little while for them to come around to working out what their needs are. What we've done is put some things in place for them. Okay, helpful hints, if you like, from what you discussed last week about how to shut the place up, what our insurers are doing to help them as well. And also now with the Sport England advice that came out is pointing them in those directions. But clubs themselves, for ours, they don't know what help they want until later on down the line.
I think we're finding it's falling into a number of areas. One, insurance, and Paul, thanks very much for your input. I think it'd be interesting what the insurers are advising, because different governing bodies are getting different things, I think. And secondly, it's about how to keep their members engaged, which is sort of what you alluded to in there as well, whether they charge them full price, a third, £5 a week or whatever. I think that appears to be what sort of things, Paul, what sort of things are the insurers advising? What sort of questions are clubs asking them?
Well, actually they've just sent a letter through this morning. I haven't read it all. From our biggest insurers is Howdens, who insure an awful lot of our clubs. They're offering advice. How you securing your club, making your club more secure, bearing in mind there's nobody in and out of it on a regular basis. All the simple things. I mean, we've produced a checklist which we checked with them that ours was actually bigger than theirs, which is, did you turn off the gas and the beer? Did you turn off the gas? Did you make sure that the water boiler on the in the kitchen was turned off and stuff like that? It was their advice is practical in the sense of, have you locked the doors? Are the windows shut? Have you put have you sealed the letterbox? Which was an interesting one for me. And I'm thinking, okay, have you put a cage on the back of the letterbox for post? I might be naive, but I don't see why you need a cage on the back of the letterbox other than it all falling on the floor in the club. But I'm not certain. But that's that kind of advice they're sending through. We've advised clubs to make sure that their key holders list is up to date with their insurers and the local police. So if the alarm does go off, somebody knows who to contact. Which is, and a lot of clubs went, oh my God, I don't know where our key holder list is. Who is on our key holder list? It's something that we haven't had to manage before.
Yes.
Or they haven't had to think about. I mean, one club, it was an amazing thing, was they knew where the alarm was for the bar, but they didn't realise that the club actually had an entry alarm as well, because it had never been turned on, because the club is always in constant use. Somebody went, what's that monitor in the corner there? And they went, that's the entry alarm. That's the entry alarm, which nobody had ever turned on.
Mm. So just another little thing. If you there is a chat box. If you want to put comments, questions, etc. in there, please do. You just it comes over on the right, and Natalie will be sort of administering, managing that. So if you want to put questions in there, then please do and chat away quite merrily.
Yeah, we've just had a comment from Sophie saying communication-wise, clubs are being inundated with too much information. It's how we digest this and communicate to them. And I think we've heard that quite a lot over this week, haven't we, really? So I think a lot of partners are having that conversation about getting the information out there, but new information that's not all the same as well.
Yeah, I think there's a real balance between, getting communication, and they're getting communication from active partnerships, from the governing bodies, from the local governing bodies, from national stuff as well. And I think you're right, there is a lot. We're trying, from Club Matters point of view, to try and put together a consistent one across the number of governing bodies, but it's very difficult. I mean, Paul's just identified issues in rowing clubs that probably aren't relevant for basketball clubs or boxing clubs or hockey clubs, but might be relevant for those that are asset owning. Any other issues that are coming up in terms of supporting clubs, in terms of mothballing, shutting down, etc.? We'll come to membership and membership services that are providing in a little while. Any other questions that are coming up from clubs?
Simon, it's Adam here from Sport Birmingham.
Hi, Adam.
Just one thing we've got coming through from I guess more of a traditional asset owning space is maintenance of facilities. So more like the sports and turf pitches, and actually the balance of, we've got maybe a subcontracted groundsman or we're city council groundsman, but then our NGB saying you should be trying to look after it in a similar way that you would if you were going to be playing. So there's that balance of what should we be doing, and then how do we manage cash flow to ensure we can pay that groundsman. So a lot of investment obviously goes into particularly turf pitches and things like cricket going into the summer over the winter, and it's that actually we've invested X into it over the winter. If we stop doing stuff on it now, do we lose all that investment? So that's probably more from a traditional sport angle, but definitely coming through.
Chip in on that, Simon. It's Will from England Golf. We clearly, there's a relevance in that to golf clubs who generally employ a number of green staff, and we've been kind of gathering with Bigger, which is their trade body, if you like. And they've issued guidance that's fairly clear around what constitutes the essential maintenance for those members of greenkeepers. It is available on our website if anybody wants to have a look. It clearly is golf specific, but might help to guide some of those other grounds maintenance staff in terms of what is considered by the government to be essential maintenance in that context.
And has that led to ground staff being put on part-time, or have they been furloughed? What's the sort of result of that?
Various across the different 1,800 and something clubs. Clearly, they're all of different statures and have different numbers of green staff. But typically, I think there has been a reduction in the number of greenkeepers. A number have been furloughed, and they've reduced down to probably about half the size in most cases to do that essential maintenance. They're also doing some security work at the same time, if you like, so there is somebody on site. But yeah, they are kind of, clearly the amount of maintenance they can do on the course is reduced. One thing we're also trying to knock back a little is where we see those clubs put it on social media about how much work the greenkeepers are doing and how great the course is going to be, because they're doing all this work that they've got planned whilst the course is quiet. That doesn't constitute essential maintenance, and we're trying to minimise that, because I think it could play poorly in government circles if they're seen to be doing something that is actually improving the course and doing more than they should be. So yeah, so to go back to the question, it has seen a reduction in green staff across most clubs, I think, with most being furloughed.
I think the challenge is probably, this is the case with Adam and cricket clubs, etc., who have a single grounds person. Yeah. That actually, to furlough them means that nothing can go on. But then do you reduce them down onto part-time wages, which actually is a disadvantage to going on to part-time as opposed to being furloughed, because they obviously reduce their income on that. Is that the sort of challenge you're facing, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the balance between, I say one or two people who do the ground or do grounds, and absolutely that balance. We could go part time, but actually, that person becomes at a disadvantage rather than necessarily the club. So yeah, it's an interesting point. And then you might have volunteers who can jump in as well. But then you've got the sort of social distancing, hygiene, just making sure that's all in place in terms of the clubs being set up properly to advocate that if needed.
I mean, that's just come through on the chat box around a question. That I think there's also a challenge of if you're furloughing somebody who's employed to do position and then asking volunteers to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's other employment issues, although a lesser issue in the bigger picture, but I think is a challenge, and I don't quite know how clubs will resolve that. But I think cricket clubs, particularly, because you're not preparing pitches, so to speak, because there isn't any cricket, but then it still needs to be essential maintenance to keep the outfield and whatever tidy, and make sure that investment over the winter is not lost, isn't it? Any other issues coming up from clubs that are not non-asset owning, that are maybe hiring facilities? Have there been any issues? I know there's been some where some leisure centres have insisted on clubs, if they wish to retain their pool time or their court time, as and when things get back to normal, they're insisting that they pay a retainer or keep a retainer to keep their slots. Are there any examples of clubs that have experienced that with leisure centres, etc.?
Simon, Peter Payne.
Hi, Peter.
Yeah, we've gone out to our clubs and asked that question. So far, no one's come back and said there's been an issue. So at the moment, it seems like the leisure centres haven't, the ones they're using anyway, haven't asked them to actually stump up money and keep the slot. So it's interesting because we thought that might be the case, and it hasn't happened so far that we're aware of anyway.
I think there is a worry from clubs that they might lose if they, because they're not contracted in, or the contracts start again in September, that they might lose court time or pool time, etc. I did speak to some leisure operators earlier in the week via swimming, and the leisure operators appear to be more worried about casual participants coming back into their centres, whether it's in the gym or in the pool or casual badminton. They're more worried about the casual participants than they are about club activities booking in, and they actually see an advantage of having clubs being booked in because it's guaranteed money in effect, whereas they're a little bit worried about, because casual people have broken their habit, getting them back into the habit of coming in the pool or booking a badminton slot or going in the gym. I think they're more worried about that. Any other issues that are coming up around clubs, around facilities, or whether their own or others? Okay, one of the other issues that is coming up that clubs seem to be juggling with, and some are getting to now, and some, like we said earlier, appear to be just dealing with the now and closing up the shop, so to speak, is about what do they ask their members to pay. And we've sort of got some information across sports that generally it falls into three areas. Some are asking their participants to just continue paying the full amount. Some are asking for a discount, and some are just asking for a retainer fee to come through. What appears to be happening is that the clubs that are just asking for that small fee are actually getting really good responses from participants to, continue to keep the club running, so to speak, and pay for the overheads or whatever it is during that period of time, or in some cases pay for coaches to run online sessions for participants, which has been an interesting approach. Any examples of where clubs have got to that issue about what they're asking their members to pay? Yeah.
Hi. Sorry. Yeah. This is Donna from Active Lincolnshire. I'm also representing a club that we run, Lincoln Cannons Volleyball Club. Okay. What we're doing as a club at the moment is we've put a message out to our members just to kind of say about the situation, and for sustainability purposes, we have reduced our costs, our monthly fees, just to kind of tide us over. However, a lot of our members have said that they will continue to pay full fees for as long as they can. We have a range of members in our club, some that can afford to do that and some that can't. So we've put things in place where if a member feels they cannot afford to pay a reduced fee, they are to contact us, and we can kind of come to an agreement. Ultimately, If somebody can't afford to pay, they won't pay. We won't make them pay. They've got to live through these times. So it's a case by case, but generally speaking, we've had a really good response to maybe sort of 50% of players, members keeping their fees as they are and 50% reducing them.
Adam's just put something there that are you offsetting that against the membership for next season then, Adam? What they're paying now?
Yeah, that seems to be the sort of themes coming through. Clubs saying, you know, we welcome a donation, pay what you can, with a view to being taken off of your membership in 2021, just supportive cash flow in the immediate times. But again, similar to what was just said, you're obviously aware that some people just won't pay.
There are some clubs that are either cask or charity that are asking for donations during this period. These are the ones that really got cute very quickly and actually are then claiming gift aid or are going to claim gift aid back on those donations, or that's their intention. So, you know, be asking for a donation rather than a membership fee, which is obviously they can then claim back through gift aid, which is an interesting approach. Any other examples around the place? Okay, Paul from Rowing, I know you slotted a question in which was around athletes and support and things like that. Do you want to just express that question, Paul?
Yeah, what it is, with especially school athletes and university athletes, the season, and for coaches as well, the season is now completely done. There is, you know, we're not going to get any rowing done. And we have two parts to our season. We have a winter season and a summer season. So you've got people who have been at school, you know, that have made their first teams in whatever they're doing. This was going to be their year to, you know, shine. This was their best chances, all the rest of it. Same with the university students that have been through the university programs and all the rest of it. And now we've taken away that goal. That goal has gone. That prize at the end of the tunnel is no longer there. And it's almost like they're going through a grieving process, in the sense of they've worked all this time to get to this particular point, to make this particular team or crew or whatever it is, and they've got no way. There is no go over. There is no do it again. They're not going to be at that school. They're not going to be at that university. And it's also for the coaches as well, who have developed the team over a number of years, seen these athletes grow, is what help is the NGBs or other people giving these coaches to help these athletes through that? And what help is being given to the coaches to overcome this disappointment? It's just something that we've asked our international squad to give us some advice, and that's coming through. But I just wondered what everybody else was doing, because it's, you know, these kids and university students have worked, some of them, this has been their pinnacle of success, is to get into that first team, and they've now got no way of judging how well they did. So I just wondered what other people were doing or had come across this. And it's also helping those coaches overcome that disappointment where they go, do you know what? I've got the best team ever this year. We're going to win the lot. And now they can't.
Do you know what? I bet there's a load of people that say they got the best team ever.
Yeah. But, you know,
yeah.
You know,
any views out there? Anybody come across this, or have we not got to that point yet of looking at this?
Hi, it's Nikki here from Active Gloucestershire. I don't know if this is relevant. I'm sorry, I don't know who was talking initially. Paul. Thank you. And this is not from our active partnership or anything like that. This is just purely through my own research. I run a cycling club for young cyclists, so I absolutely get where you're coming from. We're not at championship level or anything like that, but we've got a couple of riders ready to go to nationals this year, sort of 13, 14-year-olds. They've still got a lot of life in them left yet. So I'm not worried. I'm not the same kind of worry that you've got. Yeah. But you know, we've got 13, 14-year-olds who are really worried. They've done all their hard work this year at cyclocross, and they got into nationals. He's under 14. He was 12 when he got into an under 14 development squad, so it was all good. And that, you're right, it's been taken away from him. He doesn't know if nationals will happen in August or not. The likelihood isn't. So I started doing some research on how can we help him and how can we help his mum to help him. And I don't know if you know, but Professor Steve Peters, the Chimp Paradox, they're starting to do some online webinars for to help people through this situation. So if you look up on Facebook, Chimp Management, I'll put the link in a second. I was going to have a little look at these just to see how that might work to help some of my my athletes that I've been coaching. So as I say, it's not part of my active partnership work. This is me as a cycling coach. But that might be something that's useful to have a look at. So it's they are initially webinars, but there may be some things in there that it's British Cycling before in there. Olympics, so he's got quite a renowned sort of reputation for that kind of thing. So that might be something that's useful.
I think one of the challenges is they're young enough to continue to keep involved with the sport. I think Paul's probably point is that they're either they're probably within an education establishment, that they're reaching the end of their educational life, as well as their sporting in that group.
Absolutely, and this is about their mind management as much as their physical management. So as I say, this is just something that I found, and there's going to be other people out there that's go on out there. So I put the link in there anyway. Hopefully you can see that. But yeah, that's something from my research so far. If I find any more, I'll let you know.
Brilliant, thank you. Anything else that people have found around? I mean, I think there are so many examples of coaches that are running sessions via YouTube or Zoom or whatever. I know the gymnastics coach that runs a session, a 1 hour session for 8 to 11-year-olds every evening at 6 o'clock from his club and things like that. Any other examples of how we're supporting athletes in this period?
Sorry, it's Nikki again.
Yeah, go on.
I know that we've set up. British Cycling have set up Zwift. So if any of your athletes, I mean, rowers do have bikes and tend to do a bit of cycling on the side, I'm sure. But if they have Zwift, there are races on Zwift, so they can still compete. So we've got under 14s and under 16s development talent squad races going on now on a Thursday night on Zwift at 7:30. So there is still activity. So I'm running for my club. I've got 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 14-year-olds and however old I am, all in the same events going on 3 times a week, just as rides. But Zwift itself has done races. So there is still competition out there on indoor trainers. Obviously, it's expense and so on and so forth. But I don't know what other people are doing, but that is certainly something that British Cycling are on the back of.
I think a little bit difficult to do a basketball game online, but there we go. Yeah. Any other examples?
Rowing is what some clubs have done is when they've shut the clubs, they've actually taken the rowing machines and let athletes take rowing machines home. And so there's lots of competitions that have been going on online. People logging scores with various teamworks, those kind of things, and having leagues. There's lots of clubs that are doing competitions against each other across the web and all the rest of it. So yeah, there is competition out there, but it was more to those kids that are in educational establishments that there are no do-overs for them. How do we support them? And I'll have a look at that Chimp link. Thank you very much indeed, Nikki.
Just a question to you, Paul. Is there here an opportunity of some linking to club activity that if those participants, how do you keep them involved with the sport when they move into a club post their education? Is that, I mean, that's obviously happens anyway. Is this an opportunity to further that?
Yeah, it is. I'll be honest with you, we're looking at the second stage, if you like, now of having shut the clubs up, is how do we sustain and probably look at the future as an NGB, is how do we support the clubs through this period and have them ready to open and with the right offers for people. It's going to be an interesting one because every club is different, you know, and it'll be, it'll be in some cases, can we afford to do it? Have we got the volunteers or the paid staff to incorporate these people? How do we bring them in? Unfortunately, the way our sport is very much age-based. So there is no way that we can offer them something that would replicate what they've lost, unfortunately. We can only give them the best environment for them to continue, hopefully, with their support when they're back in. We're looking at clubs are looking at it themselves, is once we get through this lockdown period, is having an opening party. We're back, we're here when, you know, 3 or 4 clubs that are close together are looking at saying, right, what we'll do is on the first weekend we're allowed back, we'll try and hold some little informal events against each other and just have a laugh and just bring everybody back into the rowing family sort of thing.
Yeah, I know swimming are planning something similar. That I think that the challenge for some governing bodies is they're trying to pack their competitive program that starts in April, finishes in wherever August, trying to pack that program and the winter program into September, October. So I think there's some leadership needed from governing bodies in terms of planning the competition pathway, and also I think what swimming are planning is that those events, as and when things open back up again, are participation, very much participation. I think the concern is that there'll be some people who have kept themselves super fit, not necessarily in swimming, but in super fit, and others that have maybe got a little bit porky. I think the other challenge, I think, is looking at and seeing what's been said nationally. My reading of it is that people will be released at various stages. That makes sense. So if you're found to be immune, you're released really quickly, and if you're younger age, you might be, or whatever. If you're 6 foot tall or whatever. But I can see there being a number of people under the age of 30 released, and participant age groups, and the volunteers in the mature age groups might still be locked down because of their age or their whatever they're taking, or if immune suppressant drugs or whatever. So there might be a case where there's loads of participants and struggling to get the volunteers. So there is an opportunity of new volunteers, of course, but that's, I think, planning into the future. Is there any thoughts about what plans are being put in place for as and when lockdown finishes, whenever that is, whether that's in June, July, August, September? Any plans, or is it still too early for clubs and organisations to think of that?
Hi Simon, it's Pete Ackerley. I think it's probably just a little bit too early. I think we've probably all got several, and I suspect many sports got several scenarios. And as each date passes, some of those scenarios drop off, and maybe 2 or 3 others sort of become more relevant. So I think it is just too early for anybody to predict. I mean, the main thing is you've got scenarios, and I think that's the main thing. You use the time well to plan, and like I think someone just said, as and when people do come back, making sure that we celebrate that and utilize that as a big opportunity, and not probably try and cram what is your normal season into either half, a quarter, or still trying to do things the same way, and possibly prioritizing more the participation and the celebration rather than what we've always done before. So that's what we're looking at anyway.
Thanks, Pete. And you're speaking on behalf of American football there, of course.
Of course, yeah. Although with some other hats on as well, but I think American football,
yeah. Any other thoughts on planning for the future, or is it still too early? No. Okay.
Sorry, Simon. I think we're England Golf. We're just starting to pull together some ideas on resources that might be useful to send out to clubs, things they might want to consider. Clearly, we're not going to send those out yet. I think it would be distasteful at this moment in time to even consider messaging that looks towards when golf or any other sport is going to be back up and running again. But we want to have something that's ready, that's probably some form of simple rehashing of some resources we already have, pulled into a PDF that can go out. There's just a few pointers about what they might want to do. I think in common with others, we're probably starting to toy with some of the scenarios, some of the limitations and restrictions, which probably aren't dissimilar to just before everything was shut down, but probably will need to be in place when things start to open up again. Our sport, compared with some others, rowing is quite difficult to socially distance inside a boat. A golf course offers more opportunity to do that, clearly, so some of the scenarios are different. But yeah, so we're just starting to try and pull those together so that it's kind of in the back pocket whenever we can and we feel it's appropriate to send something out. Incredibly difficult to predict as well, I would think. Yeah, like everybody else, we and the whole sector is at the behest of virus control and measures that get put in place. And our chief exec rightly has been very clear that until such a time as numbers that we see every day announced are heading in a much better direction, then we aren't even certainly publicly countenancing anything that amounts to when we might get back towards normal. It, as I say, would be pretty distasteful to do that, I think. Yeah. Any other views at all on future? Okay, let's move on to coaches. And I think the initial bit around coaches was about whether to furlough them or not, or self-employed status, what to do with it. Some of the challenges that have come out of that have ranged from within clubs, pay reductions, furloughing. Two of the challenges also with it have been where unincorporated clubs employ a coach, pay them on PAYE, but the accountancy company might be paying them rather than the club, and it's for that third party organisation to furlough them. The club can't do that. Well, they can instruct the accountants to do that, but there's also issues coming out about unincorporated bodies and all that. And I think some of the challenges also within the private sector and the sector working within schools. There's been some challenges of contracts with schools being terminated, and therefore coaches are having to be furloughed, or in some cases losing self-employed status, income, etc. It's also seemed to have identified the number of people that are self-employed that actually haven't registered as self-employed. So there's I think we've picked up that there's a mass of people trying to do their returns as self-employed status really rather quickly, which might or might not be an issue. Also picked up some coaches that were employed after February the 28th, and actually they don't qualify to be furloughed. People have left jobs on March the 1st, or left jobs on February 28th, started a new job on March the 1st, and their new company can't furlough them because the rules are that you have to be on payroll at 28th of Feb. So I think there's something trying to be done on that. So those are the sort of things we're picking up around coaches, etc. The other bit is there is some issues around coaches saying, "Oh, I'll volunteer back. I'll do my volunteer time back." If they are paid, then that would be breaching their furlough relationships. We're also identifying that apprentices who are employed are finding that can they still continue with their education if they're furloughed? They can, we're identifying. However, they can't do that. They can't do any online learning, which is quite an interesting definition. So there's two conflicting bits of guidance from government at the moment, that people can't do online learning while they're furloughed, but they can do education while they're furloughed. So there obviously will be some relaxation or clarity on that at some point, although I think in the bigger picture that's a minor issue. Just really any issues that anybody's picking up
in terms of what coaches are identifying, what practice they're undertaking, or issues that are coming up around employment or their volunteer time, etc. Any issues that people are facing? It's all gone quiet.
Simon, just hi, it's Martha from Active Derbyshire here.
Hi.
Hi, just one point around the apprentices. So we're working on the Coach Corps programme, and so we've been having conversations with Coach Corps about what apprentices are and aren't able to do whilst they're on furlough. And as far as I'm aware from what I've heard through Coach Corps is that apprentices are able to still do online learning, and it's dependent on their educators in terms of what that looks like. But so, for example, webinars, things like that, they can still use their e-learning portal to do that content. And also apprentices are still able to volunteer alongside that, and they are still able to go out and get paid work. So they can go and get a supermarket job, for example, to earn extra money on top of that. So that's been the information that Coach Corps have been provided by government in relation to their apprentices. So just thought I'd share that.
No, really useful. I think that sort of they can't do online learning is one that's on the employed element of furloughing, and there's conflicting stuff around apprenticeships, as you say. But I think if they're doing a standalone online learning course that's not part of their apprenticeship education, I think that's where it probably would be breaching it. But you know, with Wetherspoons furloughing 43,000 people and British Airways furloughing 36,000 people, you know, I think an apprentice doing an online learning course in Derbyshire is a small issue, I think. Any other examples around coaches at all? Anything around their contracts or contracts of employment? We've also picked up that some self-employed coaches with clubs, the club is asking if they stop paying them, are they in breach of contract? I don't know if anybody else has picked up that issue as well. Clearly not. I think one of the questions is whether they are still providing a service, and I think that's the issue that's coming up there.
Simon, Simon, I'll come in. It's Pete Ezard here from Aston Villa.
Hi, Pete.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good.
That's the Villa Foundation still going?
Just about, yes. Yeah. It's interesting the question you posed. Actually, we have come across that issue that from a contract point of view, if they were to do another job, so one of our sessional coaches, if they were to do another job and maybe pick up COVID, it might compromise the money they're getting under their sessional contract with us. So there are some challenges around that. Right.
And what was the conclusion on that, or was that just as an issue?
We've taken the stance that we will continue to pay even our sessional coaches on their average weekly basis to try and avoid them coming into contact with other people and taking on that additional work. So we're trying to keep them economically sound in the short term.
So Villa have not done a Tottenham then?
We haven't, no, and obviously there's a lot of sensitivities around that, and the player debate has reared its ugly head over the last 24 hours or so. But at the moment, the football club and the foundation continue to pay staff. I know that's not always possible for other organisations that might be on the webinar, but that's our stance. And at the moment, we were trying to do the right thing by our sessional coaches as well.
Mm. Any other views on that? I could go on about, you know, a Premier League player being paid £3 million a year. You know, it'd be nice if they just funded a load of local sports clubs. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? But yeah, see my LinkedIn rant for that. Any other views around coaches? Any issues that people are picking up? Because I think that was the key issue last week, was about how to deal with coaches, how to manage their positions, particularly within we were picking it up within private coaching providers as well as within clubs. I know there's a number of clubs that have had to make some really tough decisions about players as well. I know rugby and cricket, rugby particularly, have made some very tough decisions around players contracts, etc. Any other issues around that clubs are finding, or organisations around about managing coaches and their positions at all? Okay, we'll just open it up really. Any other issues that anybody wants to throw in, and just, you see we've got people from active partnerships, governing bodies, football foundations, etc., etc. So we've got a wide range of people on the call. Any other issues that anybody wants to just throw into the mix at all?
Hi Simon, Daniel Allen here from Active Black Country.
Hi.
Hi there. All good under the circumstances. Mm-hmm. Simon, we're finding locally that obviously there's a wide berth of different clubs and organisations and their coaches operating in different ways. We're finding there's a real push towards having a virtual presence. I mean, some of the conversations that I've had with more traditional sports club coaches and community organisations and their operators has been around providing a virtual experience. There's been some instances where they're actually trying to make direct phone calls to members and participants to sort of as a way of connecting with them. But we're finding there might be a skills gap there around providing a virtual experience, not having the knowledge of how to use a Teams or how to run a team session or Zoom. So we're finding that we might be looking at providing some form of virtual platform that provides the platform for them to do such sessions, or certainly doing some form of webinar that certainly brings people up to speed on their virtual capability. I'm not quite sure if that's coming out in other areas or not.
I mean, from our point of view, from Sports Structures point of view, we're working with Club Matters, and the Club Matters workshops will be going virtual, and will be available from the end. Will be able to be booked from the end of April. All the 6 workshops. We're just agreeing with Sport England the virtual classroom platform we're going to use, and I think we're pretty much agreed on that. We're also looking at either it's a recorded webinar or a live engagement about how to run a meeting, an AGM, and also run a virtual classroom. So there'll be something coming out. We'll be putting something out. Just gone on the Club Matters website in the last few days is a how to run a virtual meeting, how to run a virtual AGM. That's on the Club Matters website already. We wrote that last week, so I know that's up now. And I think what we can do, I've not got the link with me, but I can send the link round to people if they've not got it. I'll ask Jess to send that and put that on the chat box after the meeting, which you'll be able to pick up after the meeting. Does that help, Dan?
Yeah, that helps massively. That's brilliant, Simon. Because I believe I went on to the Club Matters website a few days ago, and the things that you referred to were saying coming soon. So it's great to know actually that the end of April is obviously when we can expect those things to go online more formally. Yeah,
I think we'll probably release the ability to book workshops in the next few days. I don't want to say next week, but probably will be next week. We're ready. We're pretty much ready to go. We're just modifying the resources, and I think we start to advertise them. What we'll probably do, what we will do is say to governing bodies, active partnerships, whoever, if you want to book, particular webinar, virtual classrooms, you can do. Brilliant. We might have some open ones as well, which is just open to anybody.
Simon, can I just come in on that? Because I think you talked there very much around how you manage a virtual meeting. But Dan, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm having this experience as well. Our club coaches and dance instructors and what have you are actually running active Zoom sessions. Yeah. So was there actually something there that might not be covered under that Club Matters stuff that actually helps these coaches and instructors to run an online activity session? So it's not running a meeting or using it for that. It's actually going, now you're going to pick up your bottle of water and you're going to do this with it, or whatever the activity is. So it's that I've got a lot of sessions with running yoga, dance, core fitness that have set up in the last 2 weeks, and the kind of learning that they've gone through around how they turn off the mics of all their participants, how they can be pinned so that only they're seen, how they keep the safeguarding, the security. So we've got young teen sessions going on, so it's locked down, so only all those kind of things. I mean, I could go on a little bit more, but that's kind of thing that we're trying to make sure that our activity providers know how to do, and this is new for a lot of them, and the ones that have obviously come on are either technologically savvy already, or have people around them who can support them. There are others who are just don't know how to do any of that, so they haven't done it yet. So will that be addressed as part of Club Matters, or is this something else? Is that what you were asking for, Dan? I mean, that's what I was kind of asking for.
Yeah, Nikki, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it was two-pronged. It was the wider support that sports structures can offer, which Simon's obviously alluded to in terms of those workshops. But also, as you've sort of referenced, is you have got I suppose, some organisations that are really IT savvy, quite young operators, leaders who can just sort of really grab the bull by the horns. But then you've got the more traditional sports clubs and operators that actually it's a whole new virtual world, and they do need some support in order to connect in. So I don't know whether that's been addressed sort of nationally, locally, or how we might be looking at that collectively. So yeah,
I think it's something we can definitely bring up with the Club Matters conversation with Sport England. Miriam's just mentioned that London Sport ran a digital tech session yesterday, and Stuart, thank you Stuart, has just listed the recording on the chat. Because obviously they've got a tech hub and they do a lot of work in that area. So I think they're kind of leading that at the moment from an active partnership point of view. So yeah, feel free to have a look at that recording, but we'll definitely reference it on our end as well.
I mean, having run a West Midlands swimming committee meeting on Saturday with people of a mature age, and two realising that their PCs did not have microphones on at the time was an interesting experience. And we're going to run our AGM as well online as well, which should be, we might get a better attendance, to be quite honest. But I'd take the point there is a difference between running a meeting and running an activity. I think, whether you go down the road of Joe Wicks and you generate revenue from YouTube and all that sort of thing, I think that's probably a step too far. It's probably more about, right, how do I set up a meeting, because go-to meetings as good as Zoom and all that sort of thing, and house party and have 8 on and things like that. So I think there's a how to run a physical activity online. I think would be a nice little resource. We'll take that back to Sport England and maybe put something together. But I think there's also about playing and confidence. So I think the other bit that we're picking up very clearly is there's a difference between running an online meeting like this, running an activity, and also running a virtual classroom, because the virtual classrooms have whiteboards and you can doodle in it, you can go into breakout rooms, you can come back in again, all that sort of thing. So I think it'll actually significantly change how people use online. This is really quite simplistic. We could on Zoom use voting and all that sort of stuff. So there's so I think it's how do you run an activity online, I think is a really good idea to do a resource, and we'll take that one back as something, because I think that could be really quite useful.
Thanks, that's great. I mean, there's loads of technology out there, and I'll take London Sport. I did speak to one of the innovators, and there's some really great tech out there that's been designed in the last sort of, I guess, 9 to 12 months, I suppose, that's available. So there are lots of different tools and apps. Well, yeah, exactly. So there are lots of apps and tools, but I guess the key things for me is, how do you keep your participants safe online? How do you make sure that they're able to participate in a safe and kind of comfortable way? And I guess the other thing that certainly I'm looking for is, how do you engage those people who've never done this before? How do you get our cohort that is inactive already participating and they're coming in feeling like they're able to just get started, because we've got loads of people now searching for things to go, well, what can I do now I'm at home and I'm locked in, and is online yoga or online PT session or course session or whatever good for me? So I think those are the kind of things that we need to be helping. So just the tech side is one thing, but also how do you help those activity providers really engage those people who've never done this before themselves from their own home? So two sides to it, I guess.
I think it does link into a whole little bit that we're looking at in terms of keeping connected. So how do you with your participants, if they're in a club, in a sports, or just within a family grouping or a network grouping, how do you keep connected? And most people have got onto it in doing things like this, whether it's Teams or GoTo or Zoom. But I think it's right. How do you use that more effectively and be a little bit more imaginative, which is a challenge. But I was really pleased with my committee on Saturday because there was some that had never really got online to an online meeting before. And it was pretty orderly for the normal rabble that they are. So it was it is, but I think that's a really good need, because those that got it are doing it really well. Go on, sorry.
So is there anything in terms of liability of those deliverers delivering something online if a participant gets injured? Does that come through at all in terms of a question, or is it just a case of participants doing it in their own room, in their own home? It's up to them if they're whoever they're watching.
The only issue I've had identified is if it's under the guise of a club session, then the logic is that that's covered within a club, within club insurance, etc. But I'm not so sure about just a group of people just casually coming together.
Yeah, sorry, sorry, it's Rob from the BMC. I'm a UK athletics coach. They've actually sent around in their membership package that your liability cover will cover you for online sessions, obviously up to your qualification.
Yeah. So that indoor javelin is going to be really good fun.
Yeah, it's really good. The discus shot put as well. It's really useful.
The long jump onto the sofa. Yes. I mean, I think the insurance issue, I think that generally that's, as you say, that's covered within if it's an organised club activity.
We've got Annette Kendrick from LRS saying depends on the sport. Gymnastics has sent guidance to junior members on what they can and can't do. So yeah, I think it's going to be insurer specific and sport specific a lot of the time. It makes it quite hard to advise nationally, doesn't it? But yeah,
any other issues about running online sessions or the issues that are identified there? I think they're just gonna get more and more as we get longer and longer into lockdown. I think.
I guess it's a saturation part potentially.
Yeah.
Joe Wicks is providing free. I know it's only physical activity, but it's free every day at 9 AM. How do some of our local providers compete against that when actually they've got a living to? They're not going to get the sponsorship that he's getting to run those sessions. How do they compete in what's going to become a quickly saturated market? All they're bearing in mind, the other end of that is that they don't have to just be within their geographical patch anymore.
Or it's within their members base. That I know with some the gymnastics examples, it's directly related to their the gymnastics activities that they're doing in the club. Obviously, it's not doing beam and bar work, but it's it's conditioning and activity around that. So I think it's maybe how do they build there and engage their community, and I think that's one of the things we're thinking about is how do clubs keep their members engaged and so that they come back again. I think that's a worry from a number of clubs is and coaches and coaching sessions, whether their participants will come back again. So I think it's how do they build a community through technology, because everybody knows where everybody is. They're at home, so it's there's nobody going out to the pub or whatever. So actually you can build that community quite strongly. I think just building on what Dan was saying about running an online session, there maybe is something about how to keep your members engaged through this period. You know, I've heard of quizzes being run for clubs, and you know, so that they're actually keeping their members engaged, because that community, that sports community, is something that's been ripped away from us. You know, the Tuesday night training or whatever is no longer there, which was something people used to look forward to.
And I think we have to be careful, because some of the clubs that are kind of very much volunteer run, it's actually there's more effort into keeping this engagement going like we are than if we're just running our Saturday afternoon session for 2 hours down the park. I'm thinking very much of our well, some of the clubs I talk to, but my own included. Those kind of things it's more effortful actually. Some of this engagement now, and it's very different. Cycling. So yeah. So we're now running 3 Zwift sessions, half-hour sessions a week as coaches. One of us going on each time to lead the ride, plus some skill sessions on a Sunday. We do our little video of skills, and then we've got a few other bits and pieces like quizzes and things like that we're just putting out there. So it's making us think differently, which is great, but of course it is still quite effortful.
It's hard work. Yeah.
And this is my volunteering. Yeah, this is my run. This is me as a volunteer, not my job. It's not my day job. But
and I think where there's more skill activity, it's more difficult to do.
Yeah, it is challenging. Not everyone. But it's good for us too. I think as coaches, it's getting us to think differently. And we've all come together as coaches. We've got a great team of coaches. So, but I can imagine how challenging it can be for all those clubs out there. So.
For sure, absolutely.
I've got a final question here from Pete at Aston Villa from my emails. I thought it might be quite nice to close on, because it's from a CPD piece. I can read it out, Pete, and then maybe you want to elaborate. But he mentioned talking a little bit about what other organisations are doing around CPD. They're currently timetabling a CPD session for frontline staff every Tuesday, but interested to hear what innovative ideas are being considered to keep kind of levels of morale up.
Yeah, okay, if I can just expand on that. Obviously, from a quite a business point of view as well, we've got a lot of staff on 35, 37-hour contracts as well. And with a lack of delivery, we're obviously trying to fill their weekly timetable. Some of them are doing the online stuff that has been part of the conversation for the last hour. But obviously, we're taking this as an opportunity to upskill them as well and give them some CPD. And we've discovered quite a bit online, but I thought I'd take this opportunity to see if there was anything more innovative out there that maybe I haven't come across.
I'm going to do a Sports Structures advert. Sorry, we launched yesterday our education, the isolation. It's one of my nothing else to think about really. And what we've included in there is the UK coaching safeguarding courses, which now no longer have to be face-to-face but can be online. And secondly, we're looking at tutor training, assessor training, verifier training, mentoring training that we do as virtual classrooms. With then, if there are any assessments when life comes back to normal, they can do those. I think there will also be, there will be some more short CPDs, either virtual classrooms or online learning. I think where there is at the moment, there's quite a lot of activity-based stuff, but I'm not so sure there's that much CPD coming out for coaches or professional staff. And I think that's something that I think will evolve. Are you thinking qualifications, Pete, or are you thinking?
Well, I think there might be the opportunity
just to go down, just to keep them going.
Yeah, I suppose keep them going short term, but I think a level of realism, they might not be able to get to the front line for 3 months potentially. So a qualification pathway might be an opportunity just because of the time the COVID-19 issue might be upon us.
Yes. I think that's the bit that's concerning us, is that the CPD, this is a real opportunity for coaches to gain CPD. And people never have time to do CPD, and here we go, we've got some time to do CPD. Any other examples of where there is coaches CPD, or where governing bodies or active partnerships are pulling coaches together to give them education training, whether free or otherwise?
Hi Simon, Peter Payne, Triathlon. Our coach education team is currently looking at putting all of our, as much as we can, of our coach education resources onto line, and doing as much updating as we can for our coach workforce. But that's going to take until about the end of this month, end of April, to actually get that online.
Yeah, I think I know 2 of the governing bodies are doing the same as well.
Yeah. British Cycling are doing the same, and they've got a couple of online sessions that are coming out now for coaches, so they're doing their bit as well they can.
That's 3 governing bodies then. Yeah. Yeah, I think the challenge will be about practical assessments. I think there's a question about whether I know we've asked the question first for sport, whether you can actually assess a coach without them doing a practical session based on their prior experience, and whether you can have a professional discussion to fill the competencies around a practical assessment. We've not had an answer yet back on that.
I know that Mind were doing quite a lot as well about resources and the mental health first aid type, because it's mental health first aid light, really, their sort of 3-hour course online. So they've got some resources from there which might be useful as well, toolkits and guides, and e-learning, which could be useful for people to catch up at this time.
I know
it's interesting you mentioned mental health there, because we're quite conscious that we've probably got a workforce that is quite social, is in a job that involves interaction with a lot of other people, and then all of a sudden they're sat at home on their own. So it's about looking after their welfare as well at the same time. That's why we're trying to encourage a little bit of CPD as well, just to keep that sort of mental health stimulus going as well.
Pete, so Adam again from Sport Birmingham. Something we've seen is that coffee mornings or lunchtime catch-ups are quite helpful. So we do one or 3 a week, and we do in the morning at the moment. But we have seen other organisations doing, you can drop in, and someone will be there at 1 PM for a chat or whatever. You can make it up. You can do it around your organisation, but that seems to be working quite well now across.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks, Adam.
Well, so it's
do
just
you have topics? Sorry.
Well, as I say, that's a bit more informal, but you could make it topical and have themes as well.
I was just going to ask, do you make it topical or is it just informal? So yeah, that sounds quite a good idea.
We do at least one a week is a themed session talking about maybe the working week or what people are getting on, and then some of the others a bit more if you want to drop in because you've got time during the day. There'll be as a minimum of 1 person there to have a chat with, and it could just be about anything. So we've got a balance of both.
And that's partly what we're aiming for this session as well, to actually be, a conversation about, with a network of similar people and just having a chat about particular issues and how people are solving them. And I think once the crisis bit has got over, I think there'll be more conversation and stuff. I've heard of other organisations that have run quizzes across the staff. I know another organisation that runs with all their clients, or tries to run with their clients, a karaoke session on Zoom, which was fairly chaotic and pretty abysmal, to be quite honest. But is that sort of social side of things, just connecting people for no other reason. I think the other bit, I've read some stuff around also letting staff who are in the office collectively maybe having a structured session where they just have a little chit chat about nothing in particular, because that's what they do normally. We've got a couple of staff that are, stuck up in their bedrooms in Solihull and in Starbridge, and normally, whatever in the office. So setting up, structuring that informal session in a way, and living with it as employers, I think that's vital. I think. Although there is, I did tweet this morning, finish this sentence, if I have another Zoom call, I will. Because I think people have gone a little bit mad on webinars, but anyway. Super. Any other issues that anybody wishes to raise that they'd want to just throw around of particular issues? Super, brilliant. Thanks so much. We are aiming to run these on a regular basis. We won't run on Good Friday, but we'll probably put one again together. And if there are any issues that people want to throw into the mix, as Paul did and Pete did, then yeah, more than happy to have those. And I think if we publish the discussions in advance, then I think people can come in. But thank you very much, everybody. We have recorded this, so we will send around the recording, and we'll YouTube it as well. I think the first one's on YouTube as well. So thanks very much, folks. And if you need any help or guidance, just on anything, just whack it through to myself or Natalie, and we're happy to put that round. But thanks so much, folks. And it's my birthday tomorrow, so it's going to be an interesting birthday. In a house party with my children all over the place. Brilliant. Thanks very much, everybody, and keep safe and keep being innovative in taking part in sport. Brilliant.
Thanks everyone. Bye.